Exposed. Billionaire discovers heartwarming diary of single mom, transforms his life to find her. Jack Taylor stood in his penthouse, the sprawling view of New York City sprawling beneath him like a living canvas of ambition and excess. As a billionaire, he had everything. The sleek sports cars that lined his driveway, the tailored suits that hung elegantly in his closet, the lavish parties where laughter echoed off the marble walls. Yet, despite the glittering facade, he felt an unsettling emptiness gnawing at his insides, a void so profound that no amount of wealth could fill it. At a charity auction that evening, meant to buff his already polished public image, Jack came across something unexpected, a tattered diary tucked away in a corner. It's where telling stories of a life far removed from his own. Intrigued, he picked it up, flipping through the pages filled with a single mother's struggles and fierce determination. Her name was Lisa, a warrior balancing work, bills, and her two precious children. Each stroke spoke of exhaustion, but also of hope, a tenacity that made his heart clench. "You have to read this," he murmured to himself, absorbed in her words. They described sleepless nights filled with anxiety about the future, moments of laughter amid chaos, and the raw emotions of a mother dedicated to securing a better life. Jack could feel her pain tightness filling his chest as he realized that, despite his fortune, he'd never experienced a love like that. It struck him like lightning. Here was a woman who had everything at stake, but felt exasperated by a system that handed her the shovels of misfortune. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by urgency, Jack took a step into her world. That Saturday morning, he ventured into her neighborhood, the sharp contrast to his penthouse hitting him like a cold wave. The streets whispered of strife, cracked sidewalks and graffiti-laden walls painted a picture of dreams deferred. And yet, he saw glimmers of community spirit woven throughout, people struggling, but still leaning on each other for support. It ignited an internal battle in him. How could he reconcile the chasm between his life and theirs? When he finally met Lisa, a genuineness radiated from her. Her fierce independence filled the room like a summer breeze, raw and invigorating. But Jack hesitated. He could easily embody everything she fought against, an affluent man trouncing in to play the savior. Just as Jack pondered how to connect meaningfully, disaster struck. A fire at the local school shrouded the community in chaos, pushing them from struggle to desperation. Jack could feel the weight of hopelessness wash over him, mingling with infernal guilt at his wealth. Should he offer help? Would it come off as pity rather than partnership? Standing at the crossroads of his desire to make a real difference and the dread of appearing an outsider, he realized something monumental. True connection isn't forged through wealth, but through shared struggle and understanding. As Jack rolled up his sleeves to help rebuild, inch by inch he glimpsed the fragile beauty of unity amid despair. In that moment, amidst the need and the hope, he understood that genuine friendship blossomed from shared battles. But with Lisa still wary of his intentions, the echoes of disparity clung tight. In the heart of that frantic turmoil, Jack stood poised on the edge of transformation, heart pounding as he wondered whether it was possible to break the invisible barriers keeping him at bay. Would he forge a bond that transcended economic divides, or remain forever an outsider yearning for acceptance? The air was thick with smoke and uncertainty as Jack helped shovel debris alongside the other volunteers. The sight of the burnt ruins of the school stirred something deep within him. Fire had ravaged not just bricks and mortar, but the very spirit of the community. Children's laughter echoed faintly in his mind, memories of a simpler time, and it awakened a fierce determination to help. Every shovel of dirt he lifted felt like a small offering, a way to bridge the gaps that money could not. Faces turned toward him, some curious, others skeptical. Jack met their gazes with quiet resolve, ready to prove his intentions. He didn't know what to say, but he hoped his actions would speak volumes. As Jack continued to dig, a familiar figure emerged from the gathering crowd. Lisa, her expression a mix of concern and disbelief as she approached. "Jack," she called out, her voice barely rising above the murmur of voices. He paused, wiping sweat from his brow, feeling both exhilarated and vulnerable. "I'm here to help," he replied, earnestness lacing each word. "I appreciate that you want to help," she said, her tone cautious. "But we don't need donations. We need real change, or this will just happen again." Her words hit him like a slap. She was right. He could pour money into rebuilding, but if he didn't understand the foundation of their struggles, it would all be in vain. Jack felt a hairline crack in the wall he'd built around himself. He needed to anchor his vision, to understand what drove Lisa and the people around her. "I want to understand," he said, meeting her steady gaze. "I want to listen." For a moment, they stood there, surrounded by dust and the weight of an uncertain future. Something shifted in the air. The warmth that flickered between them ignited a spark of hope. Perhaps this was the connection he had longed for, raw and real. Taking a chance, Jack extended an olive branch. "What if you showed me? What if we worked together to rebuild something strong? Something that can withstand life as fires?" "What do you mean?" Lisa asked, her brow furrowing. "I know you have ideas about what your community needs. I want to help you make them happen where it counts." The moment dragged, and Jack could see wheels turning in Lisa's mind, a mixture of skepticism and surprise painting her features. He hoped she could sense the sincerity in his offer. After a beat, she nodded slowly. "Fine. Meet me tomorrow at the community center." Her words were clipped, but not unkind. "We can talk about what we really need." Jack's heart soared. It wasn't much, but it was something, an opening, a way in. He felt the remnants of doubt fading. This wasn't just about helping her. It was about walking alongside her as they faced the world together. That night, as he lay in his penthouse, staring at the city lights flickering like stars, he felt a different kind of exhaustion, a fulfilling weariness born from the knowledge that he was no longer just a spectator. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but the thought of standing beside Lisa, working side by side towards something greater, set his heart alight. Yet, doubt niggled at him. Would his presence truly make a difference? Or was he just another billionaire wanting to play the hero? What if his good intentions set him adrift in waters too deep to navigate? A sense of apprehension settled around him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt the gravity of purpose pressing upon him. Tomorrow, he would step deeper into Lisa's world, but would that leap of faith bring them closer or further apart? The question lingered as he finally closed his eyes, plunging into sleep filled with uncertainty, yet strangely invigorated. What awaited him when dawn broke? Jack woke to the blaring of his alarm, the bright sun spilling through his window like a burst of optimism. Today was the day. It felt monumental. He scrambled to get ready, tossing on a simple shirt and jeans that contrasted sharply with the tailored suits that usually dominated his wardrobe. His heart raced as he thought about meeting Lisa and the challenges awaiting him. He grabbed a quick coffee, the rich aroma filling his senses, and stepped out into the warm morning air. The streets bustled with everyday life, people hurrying about, unawares of the emotional pivot point Jack was about to face. At the community center, he was struck by the sheer amount of activity. Kids ran around, parents chatted, and volunteers seemed to be buzzing with purpose. It was colorful and chaotic, a stark contrast to the dismal ruins he'd seen just days earlier. "Hey, Jack." Lisa's voice cut through the throng. She was standing near a table, organizing materials with the kind of focus that made it clear she was used to taking charge. "Hey, Lisa," he replied, trying to mask the nervous energy coursing through him. "I'm ready to listen." "Great," she said, breaking into a smile that immediately eased some of his tension. "We've got a lot to cover. Let us get started." They moved to a quieter side of the center, away from the chatter, and Lisa began to unfold her vision for the community. Her passion painted a vivid picture of what the rebuild could look like: a community garden, a safe space for the children, programs for families struggling to find their footing. Jack found himself absorbed, hanging on her every word. There was something magnetic about her, an energy that pulled him in as she spoke of hope and resilience. "And we need support," Lisa emphasized, her eyes unwavering. "Not just money, but people who care, who will stand up and fight with us. We can't rebuild if we don't have a plan that includes everyone." A knot formed in Jack's stomach. He thought back to the boardroom meetings, The sterile discussions around profits and losses, also disconnected from this reality. This was about lives, about people he never met, but now felt compelled to support. "I want to help," he said, feeling the weight of his sincerity. "But I need to know, what do you think is the most important step?" Lisa paused, and for a fleeting second, doubt crossed her face. "We need to rebuild trust first. The fire shattered it, and that's more important than any building or program." Her words reverberated within him. Trust, something he had taken for granted in his world, always surrounded by yes-men and superficial connections. He felt the glass walls he had lived in begin to tremble. "What can I do?" he asked, his determination transforming to a raw urgency. "Help us plan a community meeting," she suggested. "We need everyone to voice what they want and need. It has to be their project, they have to feel ownership. We might not have the resources yet, but together, we can find solutions." Jack nodded, the gears in his mind whirring. He could rally support, he could provide a platform for the voices that mattered most. But as he opened his mouth to commit, a thought gripped him. "And if they don't trust me?" He saw a flicker of understanding in her expression. Was this a self-doubt creeping in, or was he revealing a vulnerability he had long buried? "Then you show up. Time and again. Actions mean more than promises, Jack." They looked at each other, a silent agreement sealing their newfound partnership. The path before him was uncertain, but something had shifted profoundly. As they laid down the groundwork for the community meeting, excitement bubbled within him. But just as clarity dawned, a sudden noise erupted from outside, drawing their attention. Thousands of unexpected voices surged into the center, unfamiliar faces looking for answers, children clinging to their parents, a mix of hopes and fears written on each face. "What is going on?" Jack asked, his heart racing again. Lisa's expression transformed, a mixture of urgency and surprise painting her features. "I didn't see this coming. We need to act fast." Jack felt the pulse of something larger unfolding, the weight of potentially amazing change hovering in the air. Could their collective resolve stand against this wave? The question danced softly in his mind as they hurried to face the crowd. What would it take to truly bridge the gap between their worlds? Jack and Lisa stepped into the whirlwind of noise. The air crackled with uncertainty as parents held anxious children, and murmurs swirled through the crowd. This was no ordinary gathering. It felt like a storm brewing, hearts beating in unity, but daunted by unspoken fears. "Stay close," Lisa urged, taking his arm and leading him toward the group. They arrived at the heart of the center, where people were crammed together, faces etched with questions. Jack scanned the crowd and saw the worry in the eyes of mothers, the fatigue on fathers' faces. He realized these were not just strangers, they were the very people he wanted to help. A tall woman with frizzy hair stepped forward, trying to grab everyone's attention. "We need information," she called out, desperation lacing her voice. "Where can we go? What's our next step? The city hasn't told us anything." Jack felt a surge of empathy. He turned to Lisa. "We have to give them something, anything. They can't leave here empty-handed." Lisa nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "You're right. Let us create a safe space where people can voice their concerns. They need to feel heard." "Right," Jack replied, a plan sparking in his mind. "We can split the crowd into smaller groups. Talk about their specific needs, gather their thoughts, their hopes. We can build a report from that." Lisa looked impressed, a smile teasing the corners of her mouth. "Let's do it. I'll start with the mothers and parents. You take care of the kids. We can bring them together for a fun activity, a way to lift their spirits amidst this chaos." Jack's heart raced, but this time it was from excitement. "Absolutely. I can rally some volunteers to help set it up." As Lisa moved to gather parents, Jack ran to find a few eager faces among the volunteers standing nearby. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, but it was somehow invigorating. Kids were in need of something familiar to latch onto, a distraction from the anxiety seeping through the air. The volunteers' enthusiasm mirrored his own, and they quickly set up a makeshift craft station with blankets and crayons. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him as laughter began to fill the air, a sound he'd thought would be absent after a disaster. When Lisa returned, breath shorter but a spark in her eyes, she quickly joined him in guiding the children in making paper flowers. Soon, small hands painted vibrant colors, each stroke a symbol of hope. Jack noticed the smiles lighting up their faces, the way laughter rippled from one child to another. It was magic in its simplest form. Then a voice broke through the merriment. A girl, no older than 8, stood at the edge of the group, clutching a crumpled drawing. "I made this for my dad," she said, her voice wavering. "He got hurt in the fire." Jack knelt down to meet her gaze, his heart aching. "That is beautiful," he said genuinely, reaching for the drawing. "Can I keep it for him?" The girl nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. Jack took it gingerly, feeling the importance of her offering. "I promise I'll make sure he gets it," he said softly. Knowing this was far more than just a piece of paper, the community began to feel the first threads of togetherness weave through their struggle. Jack felt a profound shift within him. He realized he was beginning to build trust not just in Lisa or the volunteers, but in himself. But just then, a man burst in, breathless and wide-eyed, calling out loud enough for the crowd to hear. "The city council is meeting tonight. They're deciding what to do about the rebuilding funds. We need to get there." The buzz of urgency returned, and the earlier hope began to waver as uncertainty crept back in. Jack exchanged a look with Lisa, both wondering the same thing. Could they galvanize this community to fight for what they needed while uniting them around their shared struggle? Jack could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Maybe this was the defining moment where trust could be rebuilt, and a true community could rise. "Are you ready for this, Jack?" asked Lisa, the fire of determination igniting in her eyes. "More than ever," she replied, and together they stepped toward the crowd, ready to face whatever came next. But as they moved forward, Jack couldn't shake a nagging thought. What if the council had already made up their minds? Would it even matter what the community wanted? As uncertainty hung heavy in the air, he couldn't help but wonder if their fight would truly be recognized. The crowd buzzed with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Jack felt the weight of their eyes on him as he and Lisa moved to the front. Adrenaline coursed through him, banishing any lingering doubt. They needed to rally these people, to show them they weren't alone in this fight. Lisa stepped forward and called out, "Everyone, please listen up." Her voice cut through the din like a lifeline. Slowly, the chatter faded as heads turned, faces adorned with a blend of curiosity and concern. Jack felt a swell of pride for her courage. "We have a chance to make our voices heard tonight," she continued, her passion igniting the crowd. "The city council is meeting, and we need to be there. They need to know what we need to move forward." A quiet murmur spread as people exchanged glances. Jack could see the wheels turning in their minds, hope flickering as Lisa's words sank in. But just as quickly, a man in the crowd shouted, "What if they don't listen? What if it's too late for us?" Jack stepped forward, feeling a surge of urgency. "It's never too late. If we don't show up, we'll be at the mercy of their decisions. But if we come together and share our stories, they'll have to listen. We'll make them listen." Lisa nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Every single person here has faced loss or hardship. We need to unite and stand as one. For our families, for our community." Jack scanned the crowd, seeing more faces light up with belief. The unease that had settled like a fog began to dissipate, replaced by a raw energy. But doubt lingered in the air. "What can we do?" questioned a woman in the back, her voice shaky. "We're just people. What can we offer?" "We can offer the truth," Jack answered, his heart pounding. "Our stories matter. We need to tell them about the families that lost everything, the children who need a place to play, the lives that depend on rebuilding this community. These council members need to understand the impact of their decisions." Lisa stepped beside him, gazing out over the crowd. "We'll collect stories. Everyone has something they can share, whether it's about loss, rebuilding, or hope." Gradually, the crowd began to buzz with conversation. Jack watched as groups formed, people animatedly discussing their own experiences of loss and survival. They were finding their voice, and he felt a rush of hope. But as discussions flared up, Jack couldn't help but think about the council meeting. Was there a chance they could sway the decisions? Even if they gathered 100 voices, what if it was still not enough? He felt a knot tightening in his stomach. Then, from the back, the small girl who had given him her drawing stepped forward again, her small face resolute. "My dad said that if you want something, you have to fight for it. Can we fight?" A stirring swept through the crowd. Jack's heart melted at her bravery. "Yes, that's exactly it. We are all fighting for our future, for each other. Together." The crowd roared in agreement, the sound echoing off the walls of the center. It was a powerful affirmation, a collective promise to stand united despite their fears. But before Jack could bask in the moment, a shadow fell over them. A tall figure, dressed in a suit that spoke of power and privilege, emerged from the entrance. The councilman had arrived. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, "I have received your messages and concerns, but I must remind you we have strict policies in place. The city will determine the path forward." Jack's heart plummeted. The man's words felt like a wall going up between them and their hope. What could they say to break through that imposed barrier? Would their unity stand tall against the weight of bureaucracy? As the tension thickened in the air, Jack felt the pressure building to a breaking point. "Remember why we're here," Lisa whispered, squeezing his hand. "We're not turning back now." But as they prepared to rise and speak for their community, Jack's thoughts raced. How could they make their voices truly heard? Would tonight be the turning point they so desperately needed, or simply another chapter in a story of loss? The crowd shifted uneasily as the councilman continued to speak. His words dripped with indifference, each statement chipping away at the hope that had just begun to cement itself within Jack and the others. Each "we have strict policies" felt like a hammer to his heart. People around him looked despondent, their enthusiasm slowly unraveling. But Jack couldn't let that happen. He took a breath, gathering his courage like a shield. "We're not leaving," he called out, voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "You think policies are more important than our lives? We are a community that matters." The councilman raised an eyebrow, dismissive, but that only fueled Jack's fire. He took a step forward, pushing through the throng of people who were still buzzing with uncertainty. "Tell them," he urged, looking at Lisa who stepped beside him. "Tell them what we've lost. Tell them what we stand to rebuild." With a nod, Lisa raised her voice again. "We stand here tonight as families, as neighbors, as friends. Through every hardship, we've held each other up. The loss of our homes, our schools, it means something. We need this city council to understand that." The atmosphere shifted. Faces turned serious, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd again. Jack could feel the change, the rising conviction. They were no longer just individuals. They were a force that a woman in the front, her eyes misty, spoke up. "My son used to play in the park where the old community center stood. Now there's nothing but rubble. How can we keep moving forward if the city won't help us rebuild?" The crowd erupted into applause, a deafening roar filling the space as people recalled their own stories. Jack felt a spark of courage ignite within him. Our stories matter. Each one is a thread, and together we weave a tapestry of strength and resilience. One by one, voices rose, each tale a testament to the pain, the loss, the dreams that had been squashed under the heel of obstinate regulations. Jack could feel the unity blooming like wildflowers pushing through concrete cracks. Then came that small voice again, the little girl with her drawing. "And my dad said we need a playground," she declared, her voice cutting through the noise with the clarity of innocence. "Please, we can't just let them take it away." Jack's heart swelled. Exactly. Not just a playground, but a home for our dreams, a space for our children to play and grow. That's what we're fighting for. As the crowd rallied around her words, the councilman's smirk faltered. He glanced at his aides, surprised by the unexpected force of emotion. Jack seized the moment. "Tonight, we are not just a gathering. We are a movement. And if we rise together, we can be heard." The crowd erupted, their emotions intertwining in a palpable energy. Jack could see the change in the councilman's demeanor, a flicker of doubt creeping into his confident mask. That spark ignited something deep inside Jack, a feeling of sheer possibility that coursed through him. But as the energy soared, Jack knew they had to keep pushing. "We've made a noise tonight, but we need to take it further," he shouted. "Who will join me in going to the council meeting? We need to show them our strength, our unity. We will not be ignored." The applause grew louder, but just as the crowd began to chant and cheer in agreement, the councilman's voice cut through. "You may have your voices, but remember you're still outnumbered." Jack felt a wave of frustration wash over him. They had the momentum, but the weight of that challenge hung heavily in the air. Would they have the courage to take that leap? Could their small voices truly drown out the clamor of bureaucracy? "Together, we'll make a difference," Jack cried, feeling the familiar knot in his stomach return. Lisa, beside him, squeezed his hand once more, and in that touch was both strength and uncertainty. But would that strength be enough when they faced the council? In the silence that followed, he wondered, was it bold optimism or reckless ambition, which would lead them closer to their dreams? As questions loomed, like thunderclouds, Jack felt the tremors of what lay ahead. Was the fight just beginning, or were they on the cusp of everything they ever wanted? The following morning felt heavy with possibility. Jack stood on the steps of his front porch, the early sun casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. Just a few hours ago, he had felt invincible, buoyed by the energy of the crowd's support. Yet now, doubt seeped in as he watched the stillness around him. What if they were outnumbered? What if the council really didn't care? Lisa joined him, her hair still damp from a morning shower. She had her notebook in hand, its pages filled with ideas and strategies they had discussed the night before. "What now?" she asked, her voice a soft echo of uncertainty. Jack sighed. "We prepare. We can't go in empty-handed. We need to show them we're organized, that we mean business." As they walked through the neighborhood, they stopped and knocked on doors. Each home they visited became a fortress of stories of loss, of hope, of dreams shattered and rebuilt. Neighbors stepped out, some reluctant at first, but curiosity soon turned into engagement. Faces that had once been blank with despair now lit up with purpose. "Did you hear about the meeting?" Jack asked at one house. A man with tired eyes nodded slowly. "I did. But what can we do? They don't listen." Jack felt a fire ignite. "That's just it. We need to make them listen. Bring your family, bring your friends. It's time to show them we're not just a few voices. We're a community." The man's face hardened. What if it doesn't change anything? What if we're wasting our time? Jack stepped closer, his heart pounding, adrenaline rushing through him. But what if it does? What if our voices reach them? We owe it to ourselves, to our kids. We owe it to every person who has felt abandoned by this city. Will you be there? In that moment, his sincerity pierced through the fear. The man nodded, determination growing. As they continued, every house brought another spark. A woman said she would talk to her book club. A teenager offered to create posters. An elderly couple vowed to come and share their history. Later that night, Jack and Lisa sat at her kitchen table surrounded by a mountain of papers, sketches, and notes. They had been joined by a handful of neighbors who weren't afraid anymore. They laughed and cried as they shared their visions for the community. At one point, Jack looked around the table, his heart swelling. "This is it, isn't it? This is what that councilman doesn't see. We're more than just names on a list. We are people, we have dreams." Lisa caught his eye and smiled. "We have to remind them how powerful we are together. No matter how many they are, we stand for something real." The night wore on, strategy giving way to laughter and camaraderie. But as they finally started to part ways, that familiar knot of anxiety twisted in Jack's stomach. He had felt their strength tonight, yet fear still clawed at him, whispering doubts. And as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a question loomed larger than all the others. Was this unity merely a fleeting moment of hope, or would it solidify into action that would change their lives forever? The dawn of the council meeting approached, and with it, a heavy sense of urgency. Jack knew they had to be ready, but could they possibly find the strength to face their fears? But more importantly, what would happen if they did? The sun hung low, casting long shadows as the day of the council meeting finally arrived. Jack stood outside his house, nervously shifting his weight from foot to foot. He could scarcely believe how far they'd come. Just last night, they had huddled together in Lisa's kitchen, the air filled with excitement and a sense of possibility. But now, the reality of facing the council felt like standing on a cliff, peering into an abyss of uncertainty and fear. "Are you ready?" Lisa's voice cut through his anxiety, her gaze steady and reassuring. She stepped up beside him, clipboard in hand, determined yet approachable. Her presence was a comfort, even as it reminded him of the weight on their shoulders. "I don't know," he admitted, his heart racing. "What if they reject us? What if we end up looking foolish?" Lisa shook her head, brows furrowing as she tried to reassure him. "We've talked to so many people. They're counting on us. We owe it to them to at least try." As they walked toward the town hall, a motley crowd began to gather, the once quiet street now filled with vibrant energy. Children ran alongside the adults, clutching handwritten signs and colorful posters touting messages of change and hope. Jack felt a surge of pride. These were not just faces in the crowd. They were friends, neighbors, and families coming together to reclaim their voice. The atmosphere pulsated with an undeniable unity. The group moved as one, an ocean of determination flowing toward the building that had long overlooked their struggles. Jack's heart swelled thinking of all the connections forged in the past few days, the powerful stories that had transformed their despair into resolve. "Look!" shouted a teenager, pointing at a banner tied to the front of the town hall. It read, "Our community, our future." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a wave of sound that sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly, Jack caught sight of familiar faces in the gathering. Mrs. Thompson from across the street, who had shared tales of her late husband and how they'd built their dream together. The school principal, whose eyes brimmed with passion for the children's future. Even the boy who had once been too afraid to speak, now proudly holding up his handmade sign. When they reached the stairs of the town hall, Jack felt a dawning realization wash over him. They were not just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for each other, every individual who had been ignored, every story that had gone unheard. However, as they entered the meeting room, a palpable tension gripped him. The council members sat at the long table, watching them with weary expressions, a stark contrast to the vibrant hope radiating from the crowd behind him. "Remember why we're here?" Lisa whispered, sensing his hesitation. "We're not backing down." Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "We stand here today as a united community. We refuse to be invisible any longer." His voice rang out, shaky but strong. The murmurs of support from behind him bolstered his courage. Then a deep voice from the council interrupted, "You can't expect change overnight." But Jack pressed on, defiance igniting his spirit. "No, we can't expect it overnight. But we can build towards it together." The room fell silent, all eyes on him now. Jack could feel the weight of those stares, but more importantly, he could feel the support, the love, and the shared determination of the people who stood behind him. As he spoke, nervousness morphed into something deeper, a bond forged in purpose. Voices began to rise in agreement, and it felt like the walls around them were starting to crack. But just then, the councilman leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Why should we listen to you? What makes you think you hold any power in this?" Jack's words caught in his throat. What if this was the moment everything unraveled? He needed something powerful, something real to say. Just as panic gripped him, he noticed a small child in the crowd, holding a crumpled piece of paper. As he locked eyes with the child, Jack heard that question in his own heart. What if they were truly heard? What if this moment could change everything? The councilman shifted in his seat, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Jack took a step toward the edge of that cliff, preparing to leap into the unknown. But what would he say next? Would his words be enough to bring the change they so desperately sought? Jack's mind raced as he searched for words, feeling the weight of every hopeful gaze on him. It was like standing at the peak of a mountain, where the very air felt charged with possibility. He looked back at the child, whose wide eyes seemed to beckon him forward. He took a deep breath, letting the silence guide him. "Because we are more than just individuals with complaints," he began, his voice steadying. "We are a community. We've stood together, shared our struggles, our hopes. Each of us has a reason to be here. Behind every poster is a story that deserves to be heard." Several heads nodded in agreement. Jack felt the stirring of something powerful in the room, like a spark moving through the crowd. He could see Mrs. Thompson leaning forward, full of spirit. He spotted the school principal, her expression fierce with conviction. "Listen to us." Jack's voice grew louder. "We're not just asking for change, we're demanding it. You have the power to make a difference, and we're ready to stand with you." The councilman raised an eyebrow, perhaps catching a flicker of something in Jack's tone, a hint of urgency that couldn't be ignored. Jack seized the moment, rallying his thoughts. "Think about the children, the futures you're shaping. Think about the families who are struggling. Each one of us is waiting for a sign that our voices matter. We need you to show us that it's worth fighting for." As he spoke, Jack poured his heart out. He spoke of nights spent worrying about bills, future plans that felt forever out of reach, dreams stifled by the daily grind. The faces behind him mirrored his emotions: fear, hope, determination. Finally, he felt that initial tremor of doubt fade away. The energy in the room began to shift. Jack could feel people around him breathing a collective sigh, a release of tension that opened them up. It was a moment of unity, powerful and palpable. From the back of the room, a woman's voice broke through. Jack's right. We're not just here to plead. We're here to tell you that we are strong together. The applause erupted, scattering the council members in small gasps of surprise. But the councilman remained stoic, his expression still unreadable. His eyes moved across the assembled crowd, as if searching for something, a weakness, perhaps. What do you truly want? He asked finally, his tone defensive yet curious. Jack felt the heat of the moment intensify. This was their opening. We want to be acknowledged, heard, and treated with respect. We want solutions, not empty promises. The audience erupted again, voices overlapping in a wave of emotion. Excitement pulsed through Jack as he realized that the tide was turning. Unexpected laughter and shouts of agreement filled the room. The councilman glanced at his fellow members, a flicker of concern crossed his face. Just then, Lisa squeezed Jack's hand, grounding him. Keep going, they're listening. Encouraged, Jack took another step closer to the council table and pointed to the crowd, now alive with energy and hope. You see all of them? We are your constituents. We believe in you. Show us that you believe in us too. Jack's heart thundered as murmurs of support swept through the room. But just as he felt hope surging, the councilman's stern gaze locked onto him anew. And if we don't? It was a blow, knocking the wind from Jack's sails for just a second. Panic bubbled beneath the surface, but he steadied himself. Then we'll make sure you hear us until you do. The air crackled with tension and resolve. Jack could feel the weight of history pressing down. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. Would they take the leap with him? The councilman leaned back, an inscrutable smile creeping into the corners of his mouth. We'll see about that. And as Jack prepared himself for whatever came next, he couldn't shake a feeling deep in his gut. It was fear, yes, but mostly it was the thrill of possibility. What lay beyond this moment? He gripped the podium tightly, waiting for the next question or command. But in his heart, he knew one truth. This was just the beginning. Yet, what would this beginning lead them toward? Would they find the change they longed for, or would the council's resistance tear them apart? The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with anticipation as Jack stared down the councilman. He felt a sense of urgency pulsing through him. Every person here is a part of this community. We deserve to have our needs met before any plans are finalized or budgets are set. His voice rang out, reverberating around the room. Beside him, Lisa stepped forward. We need to be involved, she said, her tone steady yet impassioned. We're not merely asking for your help. We're demanding a seat at the table. The council should see us as partners, not just recipients of aid. The energy in the room shifted again, an undercurrent of emotion rising higher. The councilman, visibly rattled, cleared his throat. These meetings are designed for discussion, not for demands. But we can't just sit back and wait, Jack interjected, determination sharpening his words. We're not trying to disrupt. We're trying to make sure that the voice of this community is heard loud and clear. We're here because you need to understand how deeply this affects our lives. Just then, another voice emerged from the gathered crowd, a determined mother stepping forward with her child. We lost our home in that fire. You can't tell us this is just another meeting. We are real people fighting for our future. The atmosphere rippled with agreement, voices swelling from every corner of the room. Jack felt his heart swell with hope. We need action. Let's discuss real plans, community integration, support for the families impacted, local resources to ensure this doesn't happen again. If this council can listen to us, Lisa chimed in, then we can work together to not just rebuild, but to strengthen this community. We can lift ourselves up. Suddenly, a flicker of recognition crossed the councilman's face. Jack noticed it in awareness that this wasn't going away, that they weren't just voices in a cacophony. Instead, they blended to create a potent, singular cry for help, a fierce reminder of the weight of community. More people began to stand, old and young, sharing their stories of pain and resilience, of rebuilding not just bricks but hearts. The councilman seemed to be reconsidering, his demeanor shifting slightly. Amidst the passionate voices, Jack gathered his courage. We can create a new vision together. Let us organize community meetings, appoint representatives, and build a foundation based on collaboration and respect. We're not just asking for handouts. We want to be part of the decision-making process, part of the change. The murmurs morphed into cheers, swelling around them like an iridescent tide. Your stories matter, said a council member, finally finding her voice. We hear you, but we need someone to represent this community's interests formally. Are you willing to take that on? Jack felt a collective gasp ripple through the crowd, a mix of fear and hope. Could he really do that? Yes, we will represent our community. His conviction surged within him. Lisa touched his arm. We will do this together. We can't back down now. As Jack looked out at the sea of faces shining with hope, he felt a fire ignite in his heart. The potential for transformation was no longer a distant dream, it was right there on the horizon, waiting for them to seize it. Let us set a date for the next community meeting, he urged, breathless. Let us make it happen. The councilman nodded, the invisible wall growing thinner. Let us discuss a timeline. But be warned, these meetings may be more challenging than you anticipate. We're ready, Jack replied, his voice steady. More than you know. And just like that, they forged the path ahead. Ideas flowed like the river that carried hope, pooling into plans for revitalization. With Jack and Lisa leading the way, as the crowd dispersed, smiles replaced the earlier tension. Jack's heart soared, threading through an electric blend of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had unlocked a gateway, not just for himself, but for every person standing behind him. This was just the beginning of partnership, a community reborn from ashes. And as he walked away from the town hall with Lisa by his side, he looked skyward, feeling the weight of the world lift slightly off his shoulders. There they were, not just fighting for survival, but for a vibrant, thriving future. Jack turned to Lisa, heart full. We did it. Yes. She beamed, her eyes sparkling with unwavering determination. And now we build. In that moment, Jack knew they wouldn't just change a council's decisions, they were changing lives. They were the heartbeat of their community, ready to face whatever lay ahead together. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Tell me in the comments how you feel about this amazing ending. Your reactions matter. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation in action. Let us keep this movement alive.